Today's headline: Hormuz flare-up tests Iran truce as Lebanon ceasefire bleeds. Welcome to Iran War Daily.
Ahmed El-Imam, Jana Chukir, and Phil Stewart, writing in Military Times.
U.S. forces struck Iranian coastal radar sites on Saturday after shooting down drones launched by Iran toward the Strait of Hormuz, the U.S. military said, in the latest escalation complicating efforts to end the war between the two countries. The U.S. military believes the 4 Iranian drones were targeting regional maritime traffic, a U.S. official told Reuters.
CENTCOM put it on X this way: 4 Iranian drones headed toward Hormuz were shot down. Then U.S. strikes hit radar sites at Goruk and Keshem Island. A U.S. official tells Reuters the drones were targeting maritime traffic. Tehran's foreign ministry calls that a breach of the April 8th ceasefire. The Revolutionary Guard says it hit U.S. bases in Kuwait and Bahrain and fired on 4 tankers crossing the strait without permission.
So the Hormuz risk we left hanging is here. Drones, radar strikes, and Gulf missile fire sitting right on top of the talks. Kuwait's army says it engaged 7 ballistic missiles over its airspace at dawn. If the question was whether Iran would respond, it did, in the same news cycle. And the White House is still floating an MOU to end this war, while CENTCOM is knocking down ballistic missiles over the strait. The paper track and the shooting track are pulling farther apart by the hour.
Al Jazeera with Al-Miqdad al-Ruhaid.
The United States says it downed multiple Iranian ballistic missiles and drones that were launched towards the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf, further testing a fragile truce between the U.S. and Iran as negotiations drag out. According to the U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, 7 ballistic missiles were fired towards Kuwait and Bahrain late on Friday night, hours after CENTCOM shot down 4 Iranian attack drones that were launched towards the Strait of Hormuz.
CENTCOM says it downed 4 Iranian drones headed toward the Strait of Hormuz. Then, 7 ballistic missiles fired at Kuwait and Bahrain hours later. 6 intercepted, 1 didn't reach. The IRGC calls it retaliation for U.S. strikes on coastal radar sites at Goruk and on Keshem Island.
So that answers the Keshem question from Wednesday. The U.S. hit the radar sites, and Tehran hit back inside the same news cycle. Missiles over the strait, drones over the strait. Underwriters don't have to guess anymore. CENTCOM put the risk in its own press release.
And Kuwait, Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, and Qatar are all condemning it. 5 Gulf and Arab capitals on record calling it a sovereignty violation. Iran is the one firing. By the IRGC's own framing, the targets are U.S. bases.
Meanwhile, Anadolu's reporting the White House still wants an MOU to end the war. They're drafting a 1-pager with one hand and intercepting ballistic missiles with the other. The paperwork is getting overtaken by the battlefield.
We started the week talking ceasefire. We're ending it with radar strikes, intercepts, and a missile salvo, while the Tennessee technical prep runs in parallel. Escalation and negotiation, same day, both sourced. From Ali Hashim at Al Jazeera.
High-ranking Lebanese army officers are among at least 12 people killed in Israeli attacks across southern Lebanon, days after the countries agreed to a conditional ceasefire during United States-mediated talks. Lebanon's army said a brigadier general, a captain, and a soldier died in an Israeli strike on a military vehicle on the Kardali-Nabatea road.
12 dead in southern Lebanon, per Al Jazeera. And the names matter here. A brigadier general, a captain, and a soldier, killed on the Kardali-Nabatea road. The casualties identified there are from the Lebanese army. Hezbollah isn't the force named. And that's just days after a U.S.-mediated conditional ceasefire. President Aoun calls it a flagrant violation of sovereignty. Prime Minister Salam calls it a heinous crime. The Israeli army says it was an active combat zone, and movement there required coordination, and the incident, quote, remains under investigation.
Coordination. A brigadier general gets killed, and the line is that he should have called ahead? The Lebanese army is the institution Washington spent years funding as the alternative to Hezbollah, and it just took the strike. Remember when the open question was whether Hezbollah would sign this thing? That's moot now. You don't need a signature when the strikes are killing uniformed Lebanese officers instead.
From Berk Kutay Gökmen at Anadolu Agency.
The White House is seeking a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, with Iran, aimed at ending the war and launching detailed nuclear talks, according to the report. Several issues remain unresolved, but negotiations are said to be in their final stages, with a possible agreement still uncertain.
Axios reports Witkoff and Kushner went to Oak Ridge, Tennessee Thursday to meet technical experts on uranium processing and centrifuge work. About 100 people assembled to support a possible nuclear deal with Iran. That reads like a real technical build-out, well beyond a vague diplomatic placeholder. The sequencing matters. We'd been reading this as Hormuz first, sanctions second, nuclear later. The Oak Ridge meeting says the U.S. is staffing the nuclear track in parallel, not waiting its turn.
100 centrifuge specialists in Oak Ridge. Bringing in that many technical experts for a one-page MOU would be absurd. Somebody finally admitted the MOU can't survive a real negotiation on its own. And the official's own line gives it away. This doesn't mean a deal is going to happen, but we want to be prepared. Prepared for what? They're bringing in the people who can figure out where Iran's inventory stood before the strikes, because nobody in the room can answer that yet.
The same report still has the White House eyeing a 60-day MOU, ceasefire extension, reopening the strait, while CENTCOM is striking coastal radar sites and Iran is firing missiles at the Gulf. The document and the war are running side by side.
And that's the problem. The MOU is being drafted while the war is still being fought, and the gap keeps widening. If Tehran gives up Hormuz now, it hands over its only card before the Oak Ridge room is even furnished.
From Iran International.
Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Gharibabadi accused the International Atomic Energy Agency of using the consequences of U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear sites to create ambiguity about Tehran's nuclear program.
Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Gharibabadi went after the IAEA by name on X, accusing the agency of using strike damage to manufacture ambiguity about Tehran's program. It's a direct Iranian official answer to the access problem Grossi himself flagged a few days back.
So the safeguarded sites get bombed, the inspectors lose continuity of knowledge, and now Tehran turns around and says, "You don't get to ask where the uranium is, you blew up the cameras."
And he's making a legal argument, too. The NPT sets no numerical cap on enrichment, so the fixation on 60% in his framing is the agency reaching past its mandate. For Tehran, control of the nuclear narrative matters as much as the number.
Which complicates that tidy, little change headline from the IAEA report. If Tehran's publicly attacking the agency over what it can't see, the verification black hole just got deeper, not shallower.
Gharibabadi also dinged Grossi for not condemning the U.S. and Israeli strikes, so Iran is casting the agency as part of the fight rather than the referee.
And then there's Witkoff and Kushner heading to Tennessee to sit with nuclear technical experts. They're assembling the team that's supposed to know where Iran's centrifuge inventory stood before the strikes, from scratch. So whatever Gharibabadi's contesting, the U.S. side doesn't even have its own baseline built yet.
If you're tracking fast-moving global crises, try Ebola Watch, a daily DRC and Uganda Ebola outbreak briefing every weekday, with case counts, border tracing, WHO vaccine news, and traveler guidance. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts. We've put links to every story from today's briefing in the show notes, so if one caught your ear, you can dig into the original reporting there. That's Iran War Daily for today. This is a Lantern podcast.